In this lesson, we're going to create the development environment for our metaverse. I'm going to make it as easy as possible. And the easiest way that I can do that is just to create a folder in our desktop. You can create this anywhere you want, but I'm using the desktop to make it easy to understand. I encourage you also, if you want to use GitHub to store it. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to create this folder. I'm going to call it Metaverse. This folder is going to be where we're going to save everything for the project we're going to be developing. Now, we're going to open Visual Studio Code. Here's Visual Studio Code. And to actually move into Visual Studio Code, all I have to do is pull the folder inside. And you're going to see it's easy. It's an empty folder, but it's going to open this inside Visual Studio Code. As I mentioned, this project's empty right now. But as you can see, it's already labeled inside Visual Studio Code. Very, very important. Now, to keep moving forward, we're going to need an extension for the metaverse to be able to do the tests on our browser. To do that, we're going to need to go to run a local host that's going to let us test and make those tests. So to do that, we're going to go to extensions and we're going to look for live server. Here's live server. Okay. I have it already installed, and all you have to do is you install it yourself. This version is a dependency. It's actually an extension that's going to let us run a server in our own machine, and it's going to let us test the various things we need to test in our browser. Make sense? Now, I'm going to be taking you over to the documentation for 3.js. Now, I've given you a link to this in your resources tab, and this is the documentation for 3.js. This is going to be essential because everything we're going to be presenting is exactly what's presented in the documentation. So having access to this documentation, we're going to create a new project. So we go to the link, we go to documentation. Here is what we're going to need in order to begin. Now, notice something very important. It starts before we start. This is essential. So in order to start our project, we're going to need the required modules. So to start, the first thing we need to go is go to the 3.js file. So if we go there, I've got it open right here. You'll see this extensive lot, all the source code. It's a big, big file. So I'm just going to go ahead and Control A it. So I copy all of it. And then I'm going to go over to Visual Studio. And in Visual Studio, I'm going to create a new file. This new file is going to be called 3.js. And I'm going to go and paste all of this source code inside. Then I'm going to save it. Once it's saved, I've got the file I need inside. Now, this is the first step. From there, we're going to need to then get an index file, because when you're dealing with the web, you need to have an index file, which is what's going to open up when someone visits the website. So for the index file, this is the source code we can use. They already have it included. So take this source code from here, you copy it, you go back to Visual Studio, create a new file. The file is called index.html. And then inside that file, I'm going to paste that code. Now, at this point, I've got here, in fact, let's change this title and we're going to call it Metaverse because it's our metaverse. Now let's start making some modifications to this file. The first thing we need to see is that it's going to be calling the 3.js file, but notice it's not inside a folder called JS. So I'm going to take that out. I'm just going to go // because it's the same exact folder where this file is at. There's no folder in the middle, so it's just /3.js. Okay. Now we need to put where our code's going to go, but I'm not going to put all our code in this piece. It's going to be too cramped. So we're not going to put it all inside the index.html file. So we're going to remove that and we're going to make a modification. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to a line that we're going to get from the Web3 documentation. You're going to find this inside our resources tab. If you go to the Web3 documentation, it's going to take you here. Now we're going to import inside this file Web3. So if we go down Web3, we're going to find this line right here, unpackage. We're going to copy this and we're going to go back over to the source code that we have at Visual Studio. I'm going to paste it in there. Now, this is very important because it's going to call in everything we need. But we're still not done. We still have one more modification we need, one more module. So let me explain to you which is another one because we have to add another module. First thing we do is we actually add the extra line. In this line, we put script. Okay. And what is the script? Here we put the path that we're going to need. src equals, we start putting the path. It's ./src/index.js. Now, we're going to put the type equals, it's a module. Okay, so let's put it here, module. Let me straighten up the code. And then now, where is this index.js? Where is this path? Because you don't see it inside the folder. So what are we going to do? We're going to create a new folder, and in that folder, we're going to call it src, source. Inside that folder, we're going to create a file. Let's create that file called index.js. You see now, we're making reference, as we said here. I don't want to clutter the code with everything inside. So instead of cluttering all the code in here, instead of having all those lines of code, I'm actually going to split it. And I'm actually going to put some of those inside the index.js. You see, I'm going to split the code in between this one and index.js. So here's where I'm going to put my code. Let's get started. For example, if I type here console.log and I go, hi, my name is Joan, who's my collaborator, who's working with me. Okay. Now, once I've got this, how can I see this inside a browser? Let me explain to you. It's actually very easy. What we do is we go to go live, you see, or I can actually right click on it and I go open with live server. Remember we set up that extension, live server. And what I do is I click on it and it's going to pop up with a browser. Here's my browser. Now, this is Chrome, which I've been using. And as you'll notice, I've got Google Chrome. I've also got the MetaMask. And I'm going to look for that localhost and port 5500. Why this port? Because if you notice inside Visual Studio, we're using port 5500. I'm going to look for that localhost. And here I'm going to find a blank page with the title Metaverse. Remember, we had the title Metaverse. So let's inspect it and see what's in there. I'm going to look at console. And what I find here is, hi, my name is Joan, and then failed to load resource. So let's go back to Visual Studio. If I make any changes here, let's change this to George. Hi, my name is George. And if I look at it, you see that it's updated directly inside my browser. That way we have a live server that's actually running simultaneously, and any changes we made in our source code will be seen immediately in the browser the moment that I save it. In the next lesson, we're going to begin adding the first lines to our project.